Welcome to Licensed Psychologist Now What? A podcast about the journey psychologists and psychotherapists go through as they reclaim their intuition and unleash their healing gifts while maneuvering getting licensed, life, and making a living. And although this podcast host and many of the guests are mental health professionals, the information provided is not meant to be a substitute for being diagnosed and treated by a licensed mental health, medical, and related professionals, or for supervision and/or consultation purposes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Licensed Psychologist Now What? I am your host, Dr. Lidiana Garcia, and I am so excited to create this podcast and to start this journey. I feel like this is a very vulnerable subject for me to share, a very personal experience. And to be honest, I'm a little scared with what it would entail and where is this journey going to take me and you as the listener. But I am here for it. I am done with playing small. I am done with holding back. And let's just share a little bit about what this whole thing is about. So, as you know, the title, it's called Licensed Psychologist Now What? And to start, I'll share a little bit about me, your host. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dr. Lidiana Garcia. I am a Boricua psychologist. It's a term that I am now reclaiming. So I was born and raised in the beautiful and tropical island of Puerto Rico. I'm actually from the East Coast. I know somebody recently was like, wait, what? There's like East, West, South. And I'm like, yes. And there's a lot of differences between where you're from. I am proud to say I'm from Humacao, Puerto Rico. And I grew up all the way until high school there. And then I obtained my BA, my bachelor's degree in psychology in the University of Puerto Rico in San Juan. And yeah, Rio Piedras, to be accurate. I am very proud of my undergrad. I feel like it was my alma mater. And yes, it really provided a very comprehensive overall view of my foundation of what I believe now and who I am. So I am really grateful for my alma mater, La UPI. And then I went to get a PhD in counseling psychology in the I'm just going to say in Spanish, Universidad Interamericana de Puerto Rico. And over there, there's a story about that, which I can share in a different episode. And I then went on to get a PhD in counseling psychology in la Universidad Interamericana de Puerto Rico, Intermetro. When I completed all the different classes for my degree and it was my time to request to go for internship, that is another huge story, which I'll share in a different episode. I ended up then moving to LA, California, to do my pre-doctoral internship. That's how it was called in the past. I think now it's called like just doctoral internship. And I did it over there. And super long story short, I stayed and did my postdoc as well. And afterwards, I moved back to Puerto Rico for a year and a half and then returned to LA and worked in 2012 and have been here ever since. I am also a mom of two. My eldest is 6 and my youngest is 1. And I am maneuvering and juggling all the different roles that takes, especially my youngest is a pandemic baby, whatever that means. I hope one day somebody listens to this and has no idea what I talk, but right now it's very relevant, right? I am also reclaiming my intuition, and that's part of what this whole thing is about. So I am right now just sharing that part of my intuition is I'm a clairsentience. I feel things and I'm very empathic. I can sense things in a room. It's so hard when I'm in rooms with people that are hurting because I feel it. And it's really hard for me to refocus my attention into something else because my caretaker or need to help kind of kicks in. But that's part of that clairsentience. I'm also claircognizant. So it's kind of that inner knowing of things, like things kind of like downloads just come into my mind of things that I know. I think that when I was younger, I had more of the clairaudience skills and maybe a little bit of the clairvoyance. So, like seeing and hearing things that I shut down. And that's what I'm going to share a little bit about now. Some of the experiences that I went through that repressed my intuition were definitely my family experiences. And I'll share that more later on. And my work and the journey of becoming a psychologist, being in school, having to kind of like put my intuition into a box model or an evidence based model when I was working and having to do that within that box. That was so hard. It was like a code switching, and I still do it. My supervision, the supervision that I received for the most part was really, really helpful, but definitely later on, I had some supervisors that I felt I had to like do a huge code switch and get into that box and have like the psychology hat and talk from a psychology way. And then as soon as I was back into my sessions and closed room with my clients, then I had to take that hat out because otherwise, whenever I try to do that and try to follow something like that in a box, I just get disconnected from this intuition that I feel like is something that is coming via my crown from my head. So that's very interesting. And all my experiences in my intergenerational patterns that were passed down via my parents and caregivers, being born and raised in Puerto Rico, which is some people can call it a modern colony, and all the different oppression that my ancestors and myself have experienced and continue to experience, all those things, especially if a lot of this inherited intuitive gifts were considered evil or savages or bad. And then the Catholic Church also kind of like took over, or the Christian, or all that into what's good and what's not. So all those experiences and more definitely impacted my intuition. And something that I'm noticing right now as I went full time on my own in 2018. So it's been almost 4 years. Well, it's been 4 years of being on my own without, being self-employed and creating businesses and stuff. It's been very interesting because it's like I am allowing, I feel like I am shedding all these layers of things that were imposed in me that I don't continue to uphold or believe in. And as I'm doing this journey, I'm talking to other psychotherapists and I'm noticing that I am not the only one that has felt that the institution and working in community mental health or working in agencies, some supervisors and some of those experiences and being, getting a license and all that in your field can kind of put you in that box. So I wanted to create this podcast as a liberation process, as a removing of all these things that are getting in the way so we can reclaim our intuition, reclaim our inherited gifts that were given to us to help nowadays and to be a healer and to unleash that inner healer in me while maneuvering, still being a psychologist because I'm still a licensed psychologist, making a living and trying to figure out that in this oppressive system that continues to happen, in this situation that continues to unfold about systemic racism and patriarchy and all those kind of things, and all those systems of oppression, capitalism, and all that that continue to impact me and my loved ones, and managing life in the middle of all of that, managing being in that in between of we're not completely liberated and we're moving towards that. So that's why I wanted to create a space that is not only for me to share this journey, but also have other guests, other psychologists, psychotherapists, or similar professions and sharing their stories of how they were able or how they are working towards reclaiming themselves, their inherited gifts, their intuition. Something important that I think I mentioned is what not to expect. Now that I just said what was this podcast about, then also to share what is it not about. This is not meant to be for psychological advice, nor listening to this podcast establishes a patient-client relationship with me or with the guest. If you need help and if you're noticing that you would benefit from psychotherapy, which I believe a lot. I am not going to say that I believe everyone. I believe a lot of people would benefit from it. Then I would definitely recommend that you seek help. I will be sharing here in the show notes different resources for directories and places that you can find therapy. I would definitely encourage you to look for that. And if your life is in threat or you feel like you're in a crisis, definitely to call 911 or go to the nearest hospital. This is also not meant for supervision nor consultation. None of the information provided here is meant for that. And lastly, the opinions that I share here or that any of the guests share in this podcast are personal and they don't represent the whole totality of the psychology or mental health field. So please know that this is all more of personal experiences and are meant to share. And if it resonates with you, it resonates, and whatever it doesn't, then it doesn't. It's not meant to be necessarily for everyone. So I wanted to share about that before we proceed into starting formally the podcast and all about that. So that way you have an idea of what this podcast is about and what it's not about. I am so thrilled to have you in this journey and to share. I will also be putting information here on how to join our email list so you can know right away when episodes are coming out. I am also would love to get questions and send information so I can share those things in the podcast. And definitely there will be some community events and some things down the road. The best way to keep in the loop would be to join our email list, to also follow myself in Instagram at Dr. Garcia, and all that information will be here. But thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to this journey. Thanks for listening. Licensed Psychologist Now What? To make sure you don't miss any episode, make sure to subscribe via your favorite podcast player and to join our email list via our website. Lastly, I will appreciate if you would rate and review our podcast to help us reach more folks that can benefit from the information provided here. Until next time, bye-bye.